So if you all please first welcome Pete Mundo. He is the host of KCMO News Talk in Kansas City, and also your congressman here for the 4th Congressional District, who needs no introduction, Congressman Mark Alford. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congressman, it's good to see you, sir. How are you?
Well, it's good to be seen. For 25 years at Fox 4, I got up at 3 in the morning, and I was a zombie most of the time. In fact, my kids called me Grumpy Daddy in the evenings.
Yeah. Sounds like my life,
yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, you're the same way. You got those young kids now. Now, I felt that again last Thursday morning when we were up for 36 straight hours, pushing this bill across the floor, the one big, beautiful bill that is going to make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. It was worth every waking moment to get that done.
Well, you were on the air with us last Thursday morning at 6:30. I actually got on the air at 6:05, and I didn't realize it had passed. It passed at like 5 to 6 maybe Central Time. And I was using the bathroom like I do before I get on the air. At the top of the hour, we did the Fox News hit, and they said it passed. I didn't hear it. So I get on and I'm like, yeah, I think they're close. And then I realized on social media, you guys passed it. I text you, you come right on the show. You didn't sound like somebody who had been up for 36 hours.
It's called adrenaline.
How was the adrenaline running compared to, let's say, doing a big TV gig or something? How does that compare?
Well, it was crazy. This has been a buildup. We have been talking about this, Pete, for over a year now. Jason Smith, the chairman of the Ways and Means, has really been leading this effort to not just make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act renewed for another 5 years, but make it permanent. And as he said, if we do not do this, if the Senate does not do it, it will mean the largest tax increase in U.S. history. I said, I told you on your show, I think this is the most important vote that I will take in Congress. It will be the most consequential vote. It will affect the most people. Half of our small businesses in my district, 50,000 small businesses, depend on the 199A qualified business deduction. If it doesn't pass the Senate, the president doesn't sign it into law, it will mean the effective tax rate will go from like 21% up to 43%. That is unsustainable with the high input costs that we're seeing right now in small businesses. A lot of small businesses will go out of business. And so we were charged up for a year. We were educating ourselves. It was like, how do we, everything in Congress now, we got to find the money. This isn't cheap to do this. It does take some money to put into the federal budget to pay for these tax cuts. But we knew the money was there in some form or fashion. A lot of it is coming out of the Medicaid program. Our Energy and Commerce Committee was led by Brett Guthrie of Arkansas, just down the road here, was charged with finding $880 billion over 10 years, so 88 billion a year. They did it. They found 900 billion. The left, the Democrats, the progressive woke mob lie and gaslight the American people, and they say, you've heard it on the news, this is a tax cut for the billionaires and millionaires. No, it's not. It's for businesses like this, businesses that use an S corporation and the qualified business deduction. It's also, we're not going to see a return to the alternative minimum tax, which everyone hates. We're going to see the level for death taxes remain high. So a lot of small business owners who are passing down their business, or farmers, they won't lose the farm. And so we were, yes, running on adrenaline because we knew how much this meant. So much work had been put into this to craft this. And we were up against not just the Democrats, but the media. The media, for the most part, not all of them, but the legacy media was more or less in bed with the Democrats to tell lies about what we were doing. And so it was exciting. It was worth it. I can't wait to get back to Washington next week. The ball is now in the Senate's court, and they've got to come through. I know there's some opposition. Rand Paul, they want to, it is adding some to our deficit. We are going to make that money up, though, through the tax revenue that's going to be coming in. And I guarantee you this, I will talk to you in 6 months from now. By the third or fourth quarter, with what President Trump is doing, our economy is going to be churning like you have never seen it in your lifetime. And with that is going to be added tax revenues that are going to help bend the curve and bring our deficit down, which is the biggest existential threat to our nation.
Well, let's look at that. The tax cuts from 2017, and we talked about it, I remember that morning on the air, but there was a clear uptick in revenues to the federal government in the wake of those cuts.
Yes.
We literally have a real-life narrative on tax cuts making the government more money in the last decade, and they still go to the same old talking points with this stuff.
Well, that's because the Office of Management and Budget won't change their scoring. You hear Trump talk about this a lot, not in a very artful way, but he's like, we got to change the scoring. We do. They have got to look at what is reality and not what comes out of their textbook from 40, 50 years ago. Reagan had it right. You lower taxes, you raise revenue in the long run because businesses can churn, they hire more people. They don't just stock that money away on some island in the Caribbean. They invest it back into communities like here in Barton County to where they are attracting people to the rural areas. We have high-speed internet. We want to have more of that. But people want to have success in their lives and for their families. Businesses are the fabric of America that make that happen.
A lot of the top line things that are talked about in this bill are, the corporate tax rates coming down, which have also been effective. But you talked about some of the small business wins. What are the other small business victories in this bill that might get overlooked by media?
Well, I can tell you some things we're doing on the Small Business Committee, which is exciting as well. But when it comes to the bill itself, the protections that are there for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I think, are the main point. The 199A qualified business deduction. But there is a mindset in Washington now with Kelly Loeffler, our new small business administrator, to break up the SBA out of the swamp, get them out of the swamp and into places like Barton County to get the capital and the counseling that we need here to help businesses start and thrive and maintain. They know, we know that that is the future, and for far too long under the Biden administration, the former administrator, and I'm on the Small Business Committee, was up there, and they were going into Democratic stronghold districts trying to register voters to vote for Joe Biden. That's wrong. That has changed. So they are emptying out the buildings up there. They're emptying out the Department of Education. They're going to return the money to the states where it needs to be, and through block grants and other programs, fund education. And they're going to do the same thing with the Small Business Administration. They're doing the same thing with the FBI. Kash Patel was before our Appropriations Subcommittee 2 weeks ago. They're moving 34 agents to the Kansas City area, some down to Springfield and some to St. Louis, and trying to get people who serve America into the heart of America.
So now, as Gary mentioned, this thing goes to the Senate. Take us through this reconciliation process. Whatever they do with it, then do you have to pass their version and back and forth we go, or is there some happy medium where you skip all that?
So how many of you out there remember Schoolhouse Rock? Okay. I always go back to that, and I was kind of surprised I got to Washington. It doesn't really work that way. Usually on the big bills like the National Defense Authorization Act, I was on Armed Services my first term, and so the House passes its version of an act or a bill, then it goes to the Senate, they pass theirs, and then we come to a conference committee. You remember that? Mm-hmm. It doesn't always work that way. They may call it a conference committee. I got assigned to be on the conference committee for National Defense Authorization Act and the Armed Services. We signed a little paper, but we didn't do anything. The decisions were made in what they call the four corners. The Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the House Speaker, and the House Minority Leader. So basically, now it's, two Republicans, 2 Democrats. I guess it's always that way. But they each have an equal vote. That's not right. That is not representational government. The Republicans are in charge. We're in charge of the House. We're in charge of the Senate. We should have a greater say. So now what's going to happen is it's going to go to, I think, a true conference committee on some of these issues that we cannot reach agreement on. We are hoping, and Speaker Johnson has asked the Senate to please not change this bill substantially. We are up against the clock. We were up against the clock to get it out of the House by Memorial Day. We did that with a few hours to spare. And now the deadline is, it's kind of an arbitrary deadline, but we want to have this on the president's desk by July 4th. Can you imagine Donald J. Trump signing this big, beautiful bill on July 4th?
Right up his alley.
Independence Day, that's right.
That's great.
So I went a long way in answering that question, but we will probably go to conference. We're hoping that not much has changed. You've heard a lot about the SALT tax, the state and local tax that our friends in California, New York, and Illinois are really relying on having that $40,000 deductible tax from their federal income tax. They've got to have a win to take back to their districts. A lot of these men and women who are Republicans who won in those states, Biden won in those districts, the presidential race. So these are very light Democrat, maybe D1, D2 districts. They've got to come back. We've got to retain our majority and actually increase our majority in the House. If we don't do that, Pete, by 2027 in January, if the Democrats get control, it will all be about impeachment of President Trump.
Yeah, you're right about that. So going to conference, the Senate will pass its version. It goes to conference. That means basically Republicans in the House will get to decide on the future. Is that what that means, or no?
It means that the House and the Senate will work together to figure out what we can both get what we can basically get 218 votes.
Okay.
All right. The Senate has a clear majority of 54.
Yep.
They're going to come back with a more conservative bill, try to bring down some of the spending more so than, we had an agreement with the president straight away last December that if we're going to pass this, we're going to raise the debt ceiling, which I'm not a huge in favor of, but we need to do it for the bond markets. And we were also going to find $1.5 trillion in savings. We found $1.6 trillion. So we actually came in higher in the savings than we agreed upon. The Senate wants to save more money, but we'll come together in conference and figure it out how we can get 218 votes in the House. That is the most difficult thing.
Mm-hmm. So there was some criticism you probably saw from Elon Musk in the last 24 hours saying that he feels like Doge and all their work is for naught based on the House bill. The president addressed it today, and he said, hey, we're looking at some more cuts. How would you respond to that disappointment that was expressed by Elon Musk on behalf of Doge?
I joined the Doge caucus straight away, even before we were re-sworn in on January 3rd into the 119th Congress, because I thought we were going to work together with the administration and Elon Musk. Originally he wasn't on the scene. He came into the scene in summer, about this time last year, and really led the Doge movement along with Ramaswamy, who's now running for governor of Ohio. But I think we in Congress realize that we have Article I authority when it comes to spending. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, 4 subcommittees, and we have this authority under Congress to direct the spending of the government. These monies under the previous Congress were wrongfully appropriated, in my opinion, in a lot of the programs like USAID, and we can get into that in just a bit. The way to do this is through what are called rescission packages. The president and the administration makes the recommendation, sends a rescission package to the House. We take it up in the Appropriations Committee. We pass it, and the full House votes on it. We basically take back the money from these faulty programs. It's been done before. We can do it again. We're doing it next week with about $9 billion worth of rescission, including programs on the USAID and also Corporation for Public Broadcasting, PBS and NPR. A lot of us don't feel like taxpayer money should be going to fund these media organizations that are really commercial organizations. They just don't call themselves that. They're left-leaning, as you know. And if you're going to get taxpayer dollars, which you shouldn't, I mean, you've got a show, you've got a radio station, you don't own it, but you don't get taxpayer money for that,
They
do
do
you?
not. They do not. Nope.
But why are taxpayers funding media? There are so many platforms out there right now, streaming, internet, you name it, that we don't need taxpayers to fund the media.
And the lawsuit I saw from NPR yesterday alleges that defunding NPR is infringing on free speech. I mean, it's a laughable defense. I don't know how they're going to get away with it, but they're going to try. I don't get it.
It by keeping it alive, it infringes on the taxpayers' rights.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how they can make that argument and it stand up. Look, I have good friends that work over at the PBS station. I've been on their show. Nick Haynes, one of them. Steve Kraske, NPR, I'm on his show a lot. I respect the work they do. They're honorable people, and I think a lot of good journalists. But if you look at the history in the 1960s when this was all created, we had 3 channels. You know, we had Walter Cronkite, Roger Mudd, and David Brinkley. There weren't a lot of children's programming on there, and the justification for spending taxpayer dollars was that for people who maybe were in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods or communities, they could get through broadcast television. Keep in mind, we all own the airwaves, the Communications Act of 1934. And so this was a way to help educate young people. Before we had Head Start programs in school, this was a way to try to bring people up so when they do get to kindergarten or first grade, they'll at least have some sort of education, even if it's from Sesame Street. So now that's changed, though. You can find kids programming on just about any platform that you search, and it's free. Why do we need to subsidize it on PBS?
So would your response to Elon Musk then be in large part, you think a lot of these cuts can be made without being in this big, beautiful bill and without requiring congressional approval?
I know they can.
Okay.
Look, we just had Secretary Rubio before our subcommittee for national security. It used to be called State and Foreign Operations. I'm on that subcommittee. These USAID projects, we cut almost, or the DOJ did, and Secretary Rubio cut almost 6,000 of these programs. About 900 remain.
Wow.
The filter that is used for these, and there was a lot of, you've seen some of those woke programs teaching, you know, crazy stuff they were teaching in foreign countries. The filter that it has to be run through is it a matter of national security? Are we improving our national security? If it's not, we shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars on it. In fact, I wanted to suggested this to Secretary Rubio, we should rename these national security investment projects. That keeps our mind first and foremost on what these projects are meant to do. I'll give you one example. In Jordan, which is on the east side of Israel, there is a desalination plant which takes water out of the Red Sea, turns it into drinking water, and gets it up to Amman, Jordan. We have spent almost $300 million helping in this effort. And people will say, why are we spending money on this project when we need to be helping our own? I'll tell you why. Jordan is an ally of the United States of America. They're somewhat friendly to Israel. They're certainly not an enemy to Israel. Israel is surrounded on all sides, except for the ocean there, the sea, by enemies, not just people who want them not to be there, they want them dead. Hezbollah to the north, Hamas in Gaza, the West Bank, the Houthis firing missiles that are promulgated and paid for by Iran, which, you know, Biden freed up that money through the sanction relief, $16.5 billion. King Abdullah, and I've actually visited him, he's been to the U.S., he is very concerned about the future of his government. There are some 40 members of the Muslim Brotherhood that now are in Parliament, and they are growing each and every election. The people in Amman, Jordan spend 1/3 of their salary for drinking water. If that country is not stable with drinking water, that's all we're talking about, it could destabilize and King Abdullah could lose his government there. Would not be good. We use their landing strip there. Let's just put it this way, they're a friend to our military and we are to theirs. And so those type of projects that we can invest, they call it soft power, I think that's a national security interest. If we're protecting Israel, we're protecting shipping in the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, we have got to help in stabilizing that region. I think $300 million, while it's a large amount of money to you or me, it is a drop in the bucket when it comes to stabilizing the Middle East.
So the next step then is, the fear would be, if nothing's done on Congress with this stuff, could a future Democratic president come in, jam it all back in there, and then we're back to where we were? So would it behoove Congress, maybe it's not this time, maybe you get a larger majority in 26 and hammer away at this stuff, but is there a congressional role in these cuts to make them permanent?
There is. Well, permanent in that you know, we can legislate, we can write laws to prohibit certain spending, but through the appropriations process, which we do each year, we have a lot of power into what gets funded and what doesn't get funded. And so I never finished my point, I don't think, with the USAID. Now we're taking this framework of what are national security investment projects. And as we go through our 12 subcommittees, but mine in particular, 4 committees that I'm on, subcommittees, we will follow this framework and with the guidance of the administration to figure out what we need to fund and what we don't need to fund. And if the money's not there, it's not going to get spent. But it's so important that we keep our majority, because what's going to happen is if we don't, and the Democrats get back in charge, over time, these woke, crazy programs will come back into place. We will not have done our job in oversight, and we'll be right back where we started.
So when you look at the goal here for the next few weeks, you're going to go back next week. You'll find out, I guess, what the Senate's going to be doing. Have they given you any kind of a deadline on when you think they'll be wrapped up with their tweaks, hopefully just tweaks to this bill?
The Senate doesn't really like deadlines. In fact, some of them are talking about maybe pushing it to the August in-district work period. I think that is a mistake, because what we have also, Pete, is our budget for 2026. We're operating right now under a continuing resolution, the spending that was passed in 2023. Businesses can't grow, the military can't start new programs, it's uncertainty for many people. The only thing worse, I think, is a government shutdown. Because it costs more to start your government back up, and you end up losing money, and the Republicans always get blamed for it. So we are on almost a collision course when it comes to time. We've got to get these 12 appropriation bills out of our subcommittees. We're going to do that before we come back to work in our district in August. We're going to get these. We got 5 bills passed on the House floor last year. The Senate, keep in mind, under Chuck Schumer, didn't do jack, because they didn't want to. Because what they like to do is, it was the Nancy Pelosi way of doing things, put everything in one big ugly bill called an omnibus bill and vote on it right before Christmas, force everyone to vote on this monstrosity that's about this thick, and you don't get a chance to read it. And as Nancy says, vote it and then read it and find out what's in it. So we're on a time crunch to make sure that we follow regular order, get these bills done, get them passed in the House. The Senate under John Thune, this is the exciting thing. I think they have the momentum there and the impetus to get the budget done as well. But this is all going to have to be done in concert, and we still have the Farm Bill that hasn't passed. I mean, that's 2 years overdue now.
So one thing that we talked about on the show that I want to make sure that we also reiterate here is one of the sticking points was getting job requirements for folks on Medicaid up to 2026. It was going to begin in 2029, I believe it was. So, I mean, that's a big win, but I guess some of the argument was, well, we got to give states time to figure out how to navigate this new world. It sounded like that was bogus. What would that look like now in Missouri?
Well, I think Governor Kehoe, and we're having some conversations with his office, I think they're pretty much on track. We have seen this with the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. We've talked about this, and it's a lot of the same lines. We're requiring work requirements for SNAP. If you're an able-bodied adult, you have no dependents, you should either have a job, be looking for a job, volunteering, going to school, doing something to be a productive citizen, not sitting in your parents' basement collecting a check or collecting food. And I don't mean to be heartless. We live in the greatest nation known to man. I don't think anyone who's truly down on their luck for a short time I think we should be helping them out as they look for a job or try to improve their lot in life. But it's meant to be a life vest and not a lifestyle. And so Medicaid is the same way. Work requirements, there are some 1.4 million illegal aliens right now on Medicaid. We're paying for them. Millions and millions of people who are able-bodied adults that we know about that have gotten onto Medicaid under the Biden administration because he's made it available, he's advertised it, and then the federal contribution to the state for Medicaid has gone up significantly. We're going to put the onus back on the state for a lot of these and see if they want to keep paying some of these people who don't really need to be there. The bottom line, though, is we are going to get people back to work. The jobs are out there. We're creating more jobs each and every day. We're going to get manufacturing back to the United States of America, and we're going to make sure that people have good-paying jobs so they can go to work, earn a living, and earn self-respect.
I know that, you said right there that there was something that I think needs to be reiterated. 1.4 million
Illegal
illegals
aliens
on Medicaid.
on Medicaid.
So now what's going to happen, if I'm understanding this right, is you'll cut the funding to the states. If they want to keep that going, they can fund illegals on Medicaid, but it will come out of the state budget, and that's probably not going to be as popular.
No, they're not going to want to pay for that. And I know states like Missouri, they're clamping down on that as well. But there's some blue states, the sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, that they think we're, just evil people for even suggesting. And that's where the lies and the gaslighting come about, that they're trying to demonize us for doing the right thing by taxpayers. Look, it would be hunky-dory if we could help everyone. I believe in helping people. I go back to George Herbert Walker Bush, 1,000 Points of Light. I know it was corny. I think churches and communities should be doing their part in helping those who are less fortunate. But it shouldn't be on the taxpayers to pay for illegal aliens and people who can get up off their couch and go look for a job or work. I don't think that's heartless. I think it's heartless to facilitate inaction on the part of people and contribute really to a deteriorating mental health in our country.
So we will get to some Q&A here. I know some of you may have some questions we can jump around to, and I'm happy to bring the mic around if that's preferred. But when you think about this deadline of July 4th, I know you talked about it, the president's talked about it. If it doesn't happen, if we don't get the July 4th deadline, is there a chance, is there a risk that we're going up to the end of the year and we don't know if this 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act gets extended?
That will be detrimental. You're already seeing some shakiness in the bond market right now. And I'm not a big financial expert, but I do know that people want to invest in America. And if we lose our bond rating, if it dips any further, we're in big trouble. A lot of foreign countries are holding our debt. We have $36.5 trillion worth of debt, and we're growing that by $2 trillion a year. And so we've got to make this change now. If we don't, I think it's not going to be a very good Thanksgiving and Christmas for a lot of people. And it won't be our fault. It won't be President Trump's fault. It's going to be the people who are lying about what we're trying to do and standing in the way of righting this ship, keeping us from hitting this reef of despair. Donald Trump, like him or not, he loves America. He took a bullet for America. He risked going to jail for America. I have never seen anyone with that much tenacity and focus and with that much sacrifice to do something to change the course of America. We are all living in, I think, the most significant time in our nation's history, and I don't say that lightly. This is a do or die moment for America, and we each have a role to play in that.
We'll get to some questions. If there's any hands up, I'm happy to pass the microphone around. And all right, we'll trade microphones. There we go.
Check one.
Now try.
Check. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Any? Can we get any questions? All right, we got one right behind you there, Gary.
First of all, thank you for coming to Barton County, Congressman. We're super blessed to have you here as our congressman.
My pleasure. What's your name?
Brendan Kelly.
Good to see you.
My mom is Representative Ann Kelly. She
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
make it here.
Great person.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. But my question for you is, with the bond market and with interest rates, is Congress going to try to give Trump the authority to fire Jerome Powell to help lower rates and improve our credit?
That's a tricky one. I don't really have a position on that. Look, my wife used to work for the Federal Reserve up in Kansas City and got laid off. I don't know if you heard they had layoffs at the Federal Reserve. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Year and a half ago.
yeah. Oh, this is going back.
This was going a year and a half ago. She got
Okay.
laid off. They laid off 6% of their workforce. I think Jerome Powell's term is up in 2 years. Is that correct? Yeah, about 2 years. I think, as long as we have the Federal Reserve, it's an independent, it's a non-government organization, by the way. It's supposed to be a nonprofit. The money that they do make, a lot of it goes to the unconstitutional organization, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But I think, I don't know, it just worries me when a president would go in and fire the head of the Federal Reserve. One thing that the rest of the world looks to us for is stability. I think that President Trump can use the powers of persuasion that he can to get what he needs to get done without firing Jerome Powell.
Other questions? I'll just repeat them. Yes, right here, ma'am.
I was just wondering about broadband for real rural communities like the county that we live in. And I attend the Zoom meetings about BEAD and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And all I see
It's not materialized, has it?
is back,
Yeah.
put it back, put it back.
The question was about broadband in rural counties and rural communities.
How many of you here have a minimum of 100 up, 100 down broadband here? Not too many people. That's unfortunate. We are never going to grow communities like here in Barton County until we get significant broadband like we had with the Electrification Act in the 1930s, getting electricity to every home. I've been a big proponent of that. I've worked with Governor Parson and state legislators last term to try to make that happen. I've met with different utility agencies. I was on the Ag Committee. USDA was supposed to be in charge of these programs. We gave them money, and I don't know what they did with it because people aren't still hooked up, and I think that is a sin. So I'm not on the Ag. I'm not trying to dismiss my authority in this. I want to find out what's going on. That's a very good question. I think you had the same question when we were here last year. I know someone did. And I'm sorry to say it hadn't gotten much better. I think a solution for a lot of people may be Starlink. The previous administration did not want to fund Starlink because Elon Musk owns it. And so it's in a lot of ways just like he didn't want to go rescue the astronauts and they had to sit in space for 9 extra months when Elon Musk could have helped rescue them and bring them back home like he eventually did. That stubbornness, that malfeasance is over. And so I thank you for reminding me, I need to get that message back to Washington that we have got to do something to make sure that we have adequate broadband service for rural communities. There's no way that we're going to expand our great state. And truly, as I told Mike Kehoe, I want to help him turn the show me state into the grow me state.
Northeast Missouri, Northwest Missouri, Southeast Missouri.
All over.
Southwest Missouri, it's all that rural thing.
Yeah.
We've got to have it. Our students need to have it.
We need it for telehealth. We need it for students. We need people who want to work from home and can work from home to be able to do that. So I'm in complete agreement with you, and I apologize I haven't done a better job in getting that done.
I've got a theory, too, on this
What's that?
I mean, as you look at some of the counties in the metropolitan areas, Jackson County, Clay County, on the Kansas side, Johnson County, the taxes are so out of control. I think a lot of people want to get out, but they've got to be able to know they can work, and if they work from home, they've got the internet.
Right.
I was in Lynn County, Kansas, doing an event a few months ago. A lot of ex-Johnson County folks are there. They're retired. They want their kids to come. Their kids want to come. Their kids work from home. They say, I can't get on the internet here. So you can grow these rural communities, to your point, if you get some internet. But until
And
you
we
do,
have to have rural health care, too. Yeah. All right.
questions? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm trying to remember what the acronym is now, but it's the ECCA, the educational choice, I was trying to remember what it stands for, but I think it's in the big beautiful bill, but basically it's a tax credit for school choice, but on the federal level. Right.
I'm not for sure on all the details on that. I know the president is a proponent of school choice. I think that's what Linda McMahon is, our Secretary of Education, is also a proponent of that. And that's why you're seeing the breakup of the Department of Education. People in our district have been crying for the Department of Education to be dissolved and the money come back to the states. Now that's coming back to the states, we need to work together to make sure the money follows the student, in my opinion. That is the only way we're going to have children who are educated on the level that they should. Now, I know that in some rural school districts, that is going to have a financial impact on them. There's going to have to be something done at the state level with the money that the feds send back to the state, to where some of those are supported in some ways, that they can still have a viable school district for those students who want to remain in those classrooms to be educated. They deserve that. Taxpayers are paying for it. They should be educated. Does that make sense? I got your agreement?
Questions?
All right.
Pop that hand up.
I come from a family of teachers, so.
Right in the front here.
I have a quick question. As far as foreign investment in the EB-5 program, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but a few months ago, Morning Wire, I was listening to a show, and they were talking about President Trump issuing gold visas instead of the EB-5 investment program. And kids heard more about, like, this was a big blow up one day, and I thought this could impact a lot of economic things here locally. And I just was curious if you guys knew anything about that.
Foreign investment in the EB-5 program.
Don't know much about it, to tell you the truth. Is this the gold card that he's selling? For?
He's like wanting to revamp that program, the federal program, but, you know, I haven't heard much about it since he was in a cabinet meeting talking about it, so. I've heard a little bit about it. Yeah? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
maybe we'll.
I need to get educated on that. One thing I will tell you, I'm you know, no excuses, but I'm learning every day. And so a lot of these topics I know tangentially about, but I don't want to come up here and BS my way out of it. I want to do some research and get back to you on that and give you a actual intellectual, okay, we'll do that. I will tell you one thing that we filed today, or we're doing it tomorrow, is the American Land and Property Protection Act. I filed it last year. It didn't get a lot of traction. I think it will get more traction with President Trump. Basically, you cannot go to China, North Korea, Venezuela, any adversarial nation as designated by our State Department and buy land or property. Why do we have foreign adversaries coming here to our great nation and buying land? The American Land and Property Protection Act would make sure that if you're a member of one of these adversarial nations, there's 7 of them, you can't even buy an outhouse in the United States of America.
Now, is that, when you say member, is that a citizen? Is that someone with the
citizen.
government? Just a
Yes,
citizen?
citizen.
Because you've got the Chinese not just buying up farmland, but they buy those big high-rises in New York
Yeah.
City. I mean, they're all over.
I was out at Beaver Creek last year on a little ski trip, and I was in a ski lift with a guy, and he's from Beaver Creek, and he builds homes there. I think he was a home builder. And he said the town is being overtaken by Russians. They're buying up all the property in Beaver Creek.
Wow.
It's scary to, you know, especially when you're talking about farmland like this, because our food security is our national security, and we don't just feed the world. We feed. I mean, Missouri. We feed the world, and with Ukraine in the current situation that it's in, they're not able to export a lot of grains. A lot of countries depend on us, but we've got to make sure that we have the property here, the farmland here, that we can feed the United States of America primarily. And if we have foreign adversaries buying up our farmland, especially around our military bases, which is a whole nother story, that is not a good thing. It's just common sense.
Absolutely. Questions?
Why is it taking so long on the farm bill?
I love that question.
Why is it taking
Yeah.
so long on the Farm Bill? That's great. You can be in
Okay.
radio. That was just short,
So,
sweet,
I
to the
love
point.
it. We passed it it's been a year that we passed it out of our committee. It got to the House floor. Well, they wouldn't put it on the House floor because it wouldn't pass. The Farm Bill is made up of different titles, and part of them, and I'm probably telling you what you already know, but some people may not know this, part of the Farm Bill has to do with programs, safety programs for our farmers, conservation programs, And then a large part of it is the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. It actually made up 81% of the farm bill that we passed, all
Is
right?
food stamps?
Food stamps. Fancy name for food stamps. I got a whole nother speech on that, why it's corrupt. But anyway, in order to pass the programs for the farmers, which is primarily what I want to do, some in our conference do not believe in subsidies. They call subsidies for our farmers, so they won't vote for it. So in order to get these programs passed, we have to link it with the SNAP program to get Democrat votes. And I know some people say, well, that's the uniparty. Unfortunately, to get some things passed, you have to have the Democrats when you only have 218 votes in Congress. I wish that we could pass it all on our own. But we're not getting rid of our safety net programs for our farmers. They need those to survive. My brother-in-law farms in Henry County. And as you know, if you're a farmer here, you take out a loan, you buy your seed and your fertilizer, which, by the way, the input costs went through the roof under Joe Biden because it's war on fossil fuels. You get your crop in, and depending on what the commodity price is, you get your yield and your profit from that, and then you pay off your loan. Well, you can't get a loan from a bank or a farm credit unless you have these insurance programs, which are subsidized in part by taxpayers because they're extremely high and they don't cover the whole loss of a particular crop. It's only a certain percentage. And so unless the farmers have that, they can't get their loans, they can't keep in business, and many are just selling out. They're selling to solar farms. You can get $1,000 an acre for 30 years. And to a lot of people, that's a lot of money. And so we've got to make sure that we're keeping our farms alive. Pete, we are losing 1 million farms a month in America. That's not good.
So who are, I mean, if you don't want to name them, that's fine. I'd just be curious, the Republicans who somehow perceive this as a subsidy for farmers.
Well,
Are they suburban Republicans? I mean, they're not rural Republicans.
I mean, I think they're very principled Republicans, a lot of them in the Freedom Caucus.
Okay, all right.
And look, my voting record is very much aligned with the Freedom Caucus. I've just chosen not to join them because I want to vote how my constituents want me to vote. I don't want some caucus or conference telling me how to vote. And so, but some in that particular caucus, the Freedom Caucus, refused to vote for the safety net programs in the Farm Bill. And if you can't have their vote, you can't get to 218, and that's what you need to pass the Farm Bill.
So that is just on hold for the time being? Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think what's going to happen as we get to this budget, see, all these things are coming together. It wasn't in the reconciliation package. You couldn't legally put it in there. It only had to be able to do with the budgetary issues. I think what you're going to see is the farm safety net program for our producers and farmers put into some sort of bill that's going to do disaster relief for hurricanes and fires and tornadoes. And that will get it across the finish line to be able to do it separately. That's just my guess. I've not been told that by anyone in Congress, but I've been up there long enough to know that if you want to get something passed, you attach it to disaster relief. And who's going to vote against disaster relief?
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Hands up.
Yes.
So if there's no others, I'll give you kind of a closer. So AFP is a grassroots organization, right? And I think that, one of the reasons why I do the work I do is because I talked to so many people who were frustrated because they didn't know how to have a voice or an impact in their government. So that's part of the reason why I feel so passionate about connecting people to their government and finding effective ways to do that. So as a congressman, what would you say is the most effective way
Thank you for that question, and I'll repeat it for those who didn't hear. What's the most effective way to reach your congressman and affect positive change? That's a good summation? Okay. This is kind of a personal story. It's not through yelling. I hate it that the town halls have pretty much come to an end because I love talking with people. I love even people that don't agree with me. I like, come let us reason together and try to win me over. I'll try to win you over and the best idea wins, right? That's not happening now because the Democrats have no leader, no message, and no vision, and they are flailing and they are desperate. And so it's gotten to this hysteria stage where I want to have town halls. We're actually having a series in August. We're going to do it anyway. And I will just shout over people if I have to. But I like having conversations. I'll give you an example. 2 months ago, we were in, what was it, Jake? What was it? Nelson. Where? Nelson, Missouri, almost to Rocheport, almost to the river. Was that Howard County? What was it? Saline County, all right. Up along I-70. We had a coffee there. We put it on Facebook. I wanted people to come and sit down and talk. Let's just talk. I want to hear your concerns. I know there's a lot of people concerned about DOGE and the tariffs and what's going on, the instability they feel because they're not getting a lot of answers. And I'm telling people, hey, I want to get answers too. I'm in touch with the White House. We've been able to get some things done because I've called the White House and we've gotten help for Missouri Task Force 1 that's been able to get refunded and go out and help save lives. Little things like that. But I like talking to people, and so we got to this coffee house off of I-70, and there were about, 10, 15 people there waiting for me. And I could tell just by walking up to people, they were not going to be the friendliest, but respectful, right? They didn't necessarily agree with me, but that's okay. There was a lady standing out in the parking lot with a sign, very neatly printed with marker, and it talked about, Mark Alford, you need to regain your integrity, blah, 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 blah. I mean, some really good points. Jake and I went out to the parking lot and talked to her and brought her in to talk with us. She made some very good points, some that still, it really hit me hard, some of the things that I need to think about to not just maybe go along with everything, but do the right thing every time. I asked her at the end of that meeting if I could have her sign, and she thought I was going to tear it up, but it's in my home right now, and it's two-sided, and I'm going to divide it down. It's like a placard sign. I'm taking one to frame and putting my office in Washington, D.C., and we're going to put one in our office in Raymore, because it will always remind me that I may not always be right about something. I want to do what's right, and I want to listen to people. And I want to listen to our constituents. I know the people who got me to Washington, strong Republicans. I love that. We're in our 25 district. We won 75-25. But I also have a responsibility to listen to those who did not get me to Washington. Our office represents 775,042 people. It's a lot of people, a lot of voices, but I owe it to each and every one of them to listen if they're willing to talk and if they're willing to listen to me. So that's where we are. The best way is to be respectful and to try to have a conversation one-on-one. I absorb that. If I get in a fight with someone, I'm defensive. It's human nature to be defensive. I don't even know what they're saying. I've been married 35 years. I've been through that a lot. But if you can sit down at a kitchen table and talk to somebody face to face and hear their heart and not just their words, that really gets me to thinking when I'm in Washington making important votes.
And send the ranters to the radio show because they make for great radio. But you don't want them. You don't want them in the coffee shop. Any other questions before we put a bow on it? How about a round of applause for the congressman?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, I just want to tell you, Pete didn't know I was going to say this, but Pete, I've been following his career. He is such an asset for a conservative voice and conservative talk radio, not just in Missouri, but I'm just hoping he stays around because I think I know he has a bright future. He's got a young family. And Pete, I just salute you for what you do. It's not easy with a young family. I did it for 25 years, getting up at 3 in the morning and going and making a living talking to people, and then coming home and talking with your family and being a good dad. That's the most important thing. And I just applaud you for that.
Thank you for that. And as I've said many times on the air, with 3 girls, 6, 4, and 1, I'm glad I talk for a living because I really don't talk much at home with three little girls. I don't. So I get all my words out 6 to 10, and then I'm silent for the rest of the day. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
We're lucky
God
to
bless
have
you
them.
guys.
Thank you very much.